This is the wall, purple sprouting broccoli. It's just about completely dead, so I will be snapping it off. It's died kind of down to there, so it would be pretty hard for me to try to snap this off while it's still alive on the bottom, so I'm still waiting a bit. You can see even though this has snapped in two, this little guy refuses to die, and there's a tiny little purple broccoli in there. So I thought that was pretty cute. So I'm waiting for it to die further down to snap this off. That is just like a tree in there. And so there is some shotweed growing out of here. So it looks like this year's wall plants are going to be wild lettuce. And so what I have been doing here, you can do when you have the wild lettuce, this is your spring edible. It's amazing how much it just tastes like raw lettuce. You can see the latex. The sun's coming out just in time to show you. It'll get more bitter as it gets bigger. I don't know if you can see the spines in the back of the leaf. So some of the annual seeds that I'm throwing out here are lettuce, because I like the lettuce to do what the broccoli or the brassicas are doing. So it's babies here. This is how they're doing. So I showed this before in a previous video, and it's these are mutants. So we have some darker ones and some lighter ones. And I would like for some cultivar lettuce genetics to get into the wild lettuce genetics and see if that can be something as well. You see if salsify got in here. This is supposed to be a pathway, but when this happened, I used to improvise. I wasn't expecting a wall brassica, but now my pathway is walking around it. I've been expecting the slugs to mow this down, and they haven't been doing it. There is some slug damage on some of them. So it's like what I would call a natural thinning. So it's taking the weaker ones and mowing them down. There's going to be way more here surviving than what this area can really support, but I've seen like 6 brassicas grow tightly together before, and so enough of them will make it. And so this won't be watered at all. I didn't have to do anything to sow this, or I'm not going to do anything to maintain it. And this is as I trip over this drip tubing that I'm not using. This is a second year. So we have all the different phases. So that's an old one that's been there for too long and he wants to die. So this is one probably in its second year. And so it is also creating, it looks like a white Russian kale, and it's forming its little broccoli. So those are all edible. You can just eat those. But I like them to go to flower whenever I feel like being selfish, and I think about the pollinators. But that's also being selfish, because this will also set seed. And the bottom ones, I think these are edible, but if they're a little too holy for your liking, like this one, well, that's chicken food. So you use all parts of this, and that's really close up against the concrete. So yeah, I wouldn't have planted it there. It's next to this dead wild lettuce. This is my preferred style of vegetable gardening. I would call it organized chaos. So I do not like growing in lines or square feet or like rows, basically. I like the idea of having a pathway and having plants grow on both sides of my pathway. And those pathways would curve, and I like plants growing where they want to grow, or growing underneath their parents. This is a lemon balm that I moved from another area to here. So it volunteered somewhere else, and I volunteered it here as a way to, as part of weed management. So I'd rather have an edible growing in between the rocks and weeds. And also, as I was waiting for the roosters to shut up earlier, I started pulling some of the stuff off and prep for composting. And so all these little babies here, so there's the babies on the ground, and then there are the babies higher up, just below it. And just an FYI, one of the reasons why I've left the seed pods flat over the soil is because I thought that it was a protective barrier over the babies. But the ones that got chewed down were the ones that were more covered by, take my hand out of there, were more covered by mommy plants. So the slugs got in there better, I think, when they were less exposed. And these ones that were further away from mommy were better. And where there are fewer nitrogen sucking wood chips on the edges, they're bigger than here. So these are little lessons that you learn.